Hi, friends. Welcome to today's episode of We Are Marketing Happy, a healthcare marketing podcast. My name is Jenny Bristow, and I am your host. And I'm also the CEO and founder of Hedy and Hopp, a full service, fully healthcare marketing agency. And we are the proud creators of this podcast. Today, I'm very excited to have Hedy and Hopp's very own Miranda Oshner on. Miranda is our director of paid media. Miranda joined us for a state of paid media episode that we did a handful of months ago. I think it was in December. And we talked a little bit about all of the shifts happening to paid media. We talked a little bit about Meta in particular and the impact it was having for targeting and conversion tracking in healthcare. And of course, our good friends Meta have now released additional regulations on all of our payer friends. So those of you in the health insurance space. So I asked Miranda to come on today to give us a little bit of information about what these new rules are and what the impact may be. So Miranda, to kick us off, give us an overview. What's going on?
Sure. So back in October of 2024, Facebook introduced this financial products and services category. And it was previously the credit category, if you want to call it, but they expanded it. And utilizing this, specifically, it will affect our payer friends. It's mandatory as of now. So we have to really change how we're setting up those campaigns, looking at targeting, even down to like messaging specifically, really making sure we're staying compliant, but following these new stricter targeting rules. So when we're looking at targeting, we cannot just pinpoint different zip codes or different counties anymore. We have to pick a pin drop, if you want to call it that. And it has to be a minimum of a 15-mile radius around that selected point. So it can't just be, for example, here in St. Louis, we can't just say we want 63109 and 63116. We have to have pretty much like the entire St. Louis DMA, which, is could be a challenge for some of our clients, just depending on, all the different audience breakouts and different regions and different messaging and whatnot. It has to be a little bit more broad. Also with age and gender, we cannot just go like women 25 plus. It has to be exclusive of all adults. So there's really no filtering allowed, which again could play into how we're setting up campaigns and whatnot. They're taking away some of our interspace targeting as well. And specifically on the location piece too, we cannot exclude. So we can't say this pinpoint with a 15-mile radius, but exclude this neighborhood. It has to be the entire 15 plus mile radius specifically on that. And the purpose why Meta is doing this is really to increase the transparency and prevent that discrimination, really to be all inclusive and maximizing that reach. So not having such segmented and whatnot from an audience standpoint and being inclusive, but also keeping all of that data transparent.
Absolutely. So, looking, I don't want to say outside in, because we have a lot of payer clients whose media campaigns that we manage actively. But we can definitely see the positive reasons why they implemented this. It's not just to be a pain in the booty like they are in a lot of ways.
Exactly.
But they're trying to do something good here, which I can, when Meta does anything that kind of could be good, we should give them credit when that happens. So let's talk a little bit about the impact to campaigns in particular. So it rolled out in October, but it's mandatory as of now. So most folks got through open enrollment without having to worry about any of this, right? So at this point, we're more thinking about, this calendar year and going into open enrollment this fall, right? Let's talk about the impact to folks as they're thinking about their media strategies.
Sure. So it's definitely, looking at this year as we're looking through that larger strategy conversation, thinking about it in a more broad benefit focused standpoint, specific around, that ad creative and that messaging. We want to make sure that we're being inclusive with the messaging and staying, I believe an example that the team found for, that broad compliance friendly messaging was, learn more about your Medicare options today versus do you have diabetes or do you have X condition? Find a plan for you. So really making sure we're using that friendlier, broad message, but also staying compliant. I will say, from an impact standpoint, this potentially will lead to less lead quality, like a less precise lead quality. So I think we have to be mindful, as we're making those broader messages, we might have to shift it from, hey, let's use Meta as more of like mid to lower funnel, and it's going to definitely become more of that upper to mid funnel component. And then just also from a performance standpoint, right? We're gonna be looking at it from a CPM model potentially versus CPC model or CP, cost per completed view, or versus that cost per lead. So keeping it in mind as we're looking at that of like we're going to have to measure this metric much differently when we're laid out reporting and how we're defining success.
And for those of you, if you have not yet listened to our 2025 paid media trends, I encourage you to go back if you have not really caught up on the measurement changes that Meta made to healthcare folks. We really now have to shift the way that we're measuring lower funnel tactics. And for those of you that have already implemented privacy focused analytics, such as server-side Google Tag Manager, most of our clients weren't impacted at all with these changes because we'd already implemented changes that Meta was okay with. So we're still able to target those lower funnel. But if you're not yet, this may be that last push you need to kind of prepare for as tight of measurement as possible going into this next open enrollment season. So
yeah, it's fun. They're keeping us on our toes.
I know one of our core values here at Hedy and Hopp is pivot with positivity, and Meta is one of those reasons why.
Exactly. To your point, Jenny, Meta's trying to do something good. So we can definitely see it from that standpoint, but on the marketing side of it, it's just going to force us to have those more strategic conversations in the upfront of how we need to kind of look at our audiences a little bit differently, but also how we're defining success and how it's just one small piece of a much larger puzzle.
Absolutely. Before we wrap, I did want to share one additional example of an oh no. I had some really interesting conversations. We have a couple of clients, I talk about this often, but as an agency, we have, both our existing client base as well as net new folks coming. We've had an influx of folks recently asking about geofencing. So there'll be times, throughout the calendar year, we always do all of these different tactics, but you have to dig into the granularity for some of them a little bit more. And we had to look at a couple of new geographies. Geofencing is not allowed in the state of Texas because precise geolocations, according to the Texas privacy law, is considered sensitive information. They don't exempt HIPAA entities, whereas it is allowed in Missouri and some other states. So just an FYI and another consideration as you're thinking about media planning, you really need to make sure that you either have somebody within your internal team or you have a media partner that can make sure that you're developing a strategy and then implementing and activating that strategy according to the, patchwork of privacy laws we have going on. Because it's not so easy. We already know and have talked about how retargeting is out the window. We can't do that anymore. But now even geofencing and targets like and tactics like that now have a patchwork, of compliance that we have to take into consideration.
Hurts my media heart a little bit, but knowing that each state has a different rule. I think, what did we say, 19, Jenny?
19 states have privacy laws right now, and more should be coming online in the next couple of years.
And they're different. They're not consistent state to state. So really, truly understanding what we can and cannot do from the very beginning is just crucial.
Absolutely. Well, Miranda, thank you so much for coming on today. I really hope for all of our payer friends that are tuning in, this was helpful and hopefully gave you enough of a heads up that you have time to revise your media strategies to account for this shifting landscape, going into the fall season. And as always, if you have any questions, payers are one of our key areas of focus. So we'd love to chat. Give us a shout and we'd be happy to chat through some additional thoughts around media and driving volumes going into next year's open enrollment period. And with that, thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode of We Are Marketing Happy. Be sure to subscribe so you're notified of future episodes, and we'll see you soon. Have a great day.